Yeah. So what scares me the most about this is the bottom, which says we're selling because of lack of time and starting a new venture.
I don't think so. I think most lenders will have the same kind of concerns about the future of this business, and the recent pricing change makes it really tough to finance. Welcome to another edition of Acquisitions Anonymous. I'm Heather Anderson, and today Bill and I talk about, well, a controversial subject, I guess, for me, which is Calendly links. You know, some people like them and some people don't. I guess I'm in the don't category, but maybe I'm starting to warm up to it. We'll see. It was a really interesting business from acquire.com. We go through the numbers and we go through the pricing models. Stay tuned for that. That's pretty interesting. I hope you liked the episode and let us know.
This episode of Acquisitions Anonymous is sponsored by Acquisition Lab. Acquisition Lab and their team, they've been longtime supporters of the pod, and they provide a really great service for people who are looking to acquire a business. So it's created by Walker Dybel, who's become a friend, the author of Buy Then Build, How to Outsmart the Startup Game. So Acquisition Lab's an accelerator with a highly vetted, cohort-based educational and support community for people who are serious about buying a business. So a lot of our listeners like you tune in every week to our deal reviews. You want to get in on buying a business. You're on this podcast because you're trying to learn how to buy a business. But if you're not quite sure where to start, Acquisition Lab is a great place to start. So they exist to help people buy a business and to navigate all those complexities of the process, everything you hear us talking about on the show. They provide a proven framework, tools, and resources that support you all the way from search to close. They do it. There's a whole bunch of educational material and support. So if you're serious about buying a business, check out acquisitionlab.com, or you can actually email the program director, Chelsea Wood, directly. Her email is chelsea@buythenbuild.com.
Have a beard?
Good morning. Right? Yes, this is, I'm at the beach for a week and my shaver died. So I have a beard. I've scrubbed, really.
The e-commerce guru would not, be without something like that, but okay, it happens.
Well, I have done beard. When I lived in Colorado, I did the beard for a while and kind of swore off it when I moved back east. But it's just, I don't know. I don't love it. Wife doesn't love it. So it disappears right after this podcast.
Okay.
So go on YouTube and see it before it disappears. So we had to hit record, Heather, because we were about to get into a spicy debate on Calendly, because the deal today is related to scheduling, and you jumped out and go, I'm not a Calendly person at all. Yeah. I hate it. Why do you hate it?
I freaked out because I just don't like the idea of people putting things on my calendar without me knowing it or wanting that meeting to happen at that time, or who is this person and do we really need to meet? Sometimes we don't really need to have a half an hour call about that, And so if you're a busy person, it feels kind of intrusive to me. I think it's because I'm old.
So it's not so much that it offends you when someone sends you their Calendly link and asks you to do the work of scheduling. It's more that you don't like people shotgunning things onto your calendar.
It's both. I'm like one. I hate both. So yes, I'm a little slightly irritated when it's like, let's have a meeting and here's my Calendly link. Now you go figure it out. I kind of don't love that either. But I get that the alternative that I still do, which is what time are you available, back and forth with email, it's pretty bad. So I get it, but I feel like there needs to be, and I know there was a platform at one time that did this, but I don't think it lasted, where it could see both calendars if you were both signed up, and it could just show you, here's where you've got common openings, and that's what we need. I think.
I'm sad to tell you that Calendly will do exactly that. If you are both signed up for Calendly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now I feel dumb. Okay.
Yeah,
well maybe I should try some new things.
If you sign up for Calendly and then I send you my Calendly link, when you open my link, it will overlay your calendar right on it. So then you can kind of pick the gap.
Okay.
But I agree with you. It is terrible when people will crap things onto your calendar. There are, for the longest time, he's gone now, a sales guy. So I had my Calendly in my email signature, which was a huge mistake, and no one should ever do that. And I was like considering buying a thing, decided not to buy the thing. This sales guy scheduled Calendly, for the next several months, without even emailing me or anything. I'm like ignoring his calls because I told him I didn't want to buy the thing, and he's following up unnecessarily. Just kept scheduling with me on Calendly. Incredibly rude. like without asking permission, just from he'd saved my email in my email
Yeah,
signature.
that's what I'm afraid of, is that kind of thing. Because I'm pretty careful with my time. I have to be, and I can't just let it go crazy like that, or find a day where 3 hours are just down the drain because of bad Calendly,
Yeah.
situation. So I don't know what the solution to that is, but maybe I should get on it now that you told me that it does sync up the calendars.
Well, I found one. So this is what I do now for calendaring, because the reason I don't mind you send me your Calendly link. I'll pick one. I don't care. It doesn't offend me. But what I don't like is what you're describing, what I call shotgun calendar, where, I might have like a 6 hour uninterrupted block, and then someone schedules a meeting like right in the middle, right? I hate that. So Calendly does not have the option to force contiguous bookings. So like if you like have meetings from like 9 to 11 and then like 4 to 6, right? I wouldn't mind so much an 11 to 12 meeting.
Yeah.
But like a 1 to 2 meeting right in the middle is much more annoying. So I switched to this one called SavvyCal, which they did not pay me to say. But the founder was super helpful on Twitter when I complained about this. And SavvyCal has a setting to force adjacent bookings. Ooh. So you can the people who have your link can only book next to other appointments. And so you always end up block, and then wide open.
Perfect. That's what we do naturally. When we think about when am I open, we try to put them all together so we have some blocks of time. So that's great. Right. I mean, they're all evolving, and I know there's, these platforms will just keep getting better. But yeah, I'm still old school. Like email me and tell me what time you're available.
Yeah, or you needed a executive assistant who will do those emails for you.
That even bothers me.
Maybe you could hire one from Near.
Oh, maybe I could. There's many solutions to my problems, but I gotta advance forward with technology a little bit, I guess.
Well, so interestingly, Heather, today's deal I think is attempting to solve the problem you're talking about, which is that it's awkward to trade links. This one's from our friends at acquire.com. And as it frequently is an Acquire, it is a SaaS business. It's based in the United States, in Colorado, and I will put it on the screen for everybody to see. All right, so from Acquire, the only conversational AI appointment booking solution for a $3 billion calendar SaaS platform. Insert Calendly. So it is they're asking $5.1 million for it. That is a 6.4x multiple of profit and a 2.5x multiple of revenue. Their TTM revenue is $2 million. Their TTM profit is about $800,000. And their last month's profit is about $76,000. So, seems stable to up. They want 6.5 times profit, or $5.1 million. It says their asking price reasoning is based on industry standard multiples of 6x EBITDA for businesses in our sector and comparable sales on acquire.com. Our valuation is in line with current market trends. Okay, no room for argument. They're telling you what it's priced at. Description: we are the go-to AI appointment booking solution for businesses and individuals looking to improve their speed to lead. The most frequent use case is appointment-based businesses using our platform to automate, nurture, and conversational flow to educate, overcome objections, and set sales appointments. We began as a lifetime deal product launched in 2020 and leveraged Google's Dialogflow AI. In December of 2022, we were positioned for strong adoption with the introduction of ChatGPT, which normalized the use of AI. So let me kind of translate that. So they launched in 2020 pre-ChatGPT, and they were using something called Dialogflow, which was a pre-GPT AI product from Google. So they kind of already built a product around it. And then when ChatGPT came out in late 2022, it was kind of a hot swap. And their product got a lot better as soon as they could swap out Dialogflow and put in ChatGPT. So my take on what this does is you're on the website of, a hairdresser, a real estate agent, like anybody who needs to make sales types appointments. And this powers like the chat box, and it's AI conversation with you, the lead. And then when it tries to convince you to say, hey, do you want to book an appointment with Heather to originate an SBA loan? Like, are you interested? And it can ask you a couple qualifying questions. Right. And if you're qualified, the AI bot can say, customer, Heather is available at these times, looking at your Calendly. And then the customer picks a time. And I think then it's triggering Calendly to put it on your calendar and invite the customer.
Okay.
So I think the idea here is this is like a chat bot for, let's just use Heather Viso as an example. You would put it on visocap.net and potential leads would chat with it. It would attempt to qualify them. If they were qualified, they would schedule them on your calendar using ChatGPT without your interaction. So that's what this product does. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
It also says in September of 2023, we stopped offering lifetime deals and have grown our MRR to $160,000. So let's come back to that pricing model here. To date, we are the only conversational AI solution that integrates with Calendly, has over 2 million paying users, and we have developed our platform to be able to be white labeled or rebranded for agencies. With multiple large language model integrations and an ever-increasing option of AI solutions by businesses, we believe we are positioned to grow 10 to 15x beyond where the product currently is. It's been around since August 2020. It's subscription. It says built on Node.js, AWS, Vue.js, and Firebase. Its competitors are WooSender, Goobagoo, Chatbot.com, and Drift. It says they're selling because of lack of time and they're starting a new venture. That scares me.
Yeah.
Okay. And it says they've got between 100 and 1,000 customers. They've got $2 million of annual recurring revenue, and their growth rate's 172%. Heather, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, okay. Once again, we're looking at a business that is totally tied to one platform, Calendly. So you're making a bet on that platform sort of being, having staying power. And this is still a space that I think is pretty competitive. I just actually heard of another sort of Calendly competitor on Twitter yesterday when I was complaining about a Calendly link, coincidentally. And someone kind of popped in with that and I started to check it out. So I think that's the part that would scare me the most, is that this is, a very competitive space still, where they're all kind of trying to bring in the AI and make the features better, make it more seamless, and bring people like me, the people who have not really adopted it yet, into the fold. I do think it sounds great. It sounds like a nice product in the way that it works. And I like the fact that it can, be white labeled for agencies. I think that's kind of interesting too. I do see that we have to talk about the pricing model and the growth rate. So they've recently changed the pricing model. I got probably to get started, they offered lifetime subscriptions. And then once they got to a certain level of traction, they decided they could just go with monthly. And so that's pretty recent. And so I think that's something you really have to dig in on, because any kind of recent pricing change, you don't know how sustainable that is. So you don't then know how sustainable this $780,000 of profit is going to be for you. But I do think it sounds like a cool product. I just don't know how I would, structure and how I would feel about buying a business that's so tied to one platform.
Yeah. So what scares me the most about this is the bottom, which says we're selling because of lack of time and starting a new venture.
Yeah.
So they have here what is ostensibly an AI company, one of the hottest areas in tech, and they want to go do something else. Right? So they've built this thing since 2020 and they have a better idea, basically, that they don't want to do anymore. And this is the less good idea that they want you to own, which makes me a little bit nervous.
Right.
So the way this pricing worked is they launched with, and I've been Googling, since Michael's not here today, I have to take the Sherlock Holmes role in the background. So there's this website called appsumo.com, and AppSumo, their business model is that they strike deals with SaaS products where they sell like a lifetime subscription for a single upfront price. So you might, it's a SaaS that's $50 a month. You might spend $199 and get it for life or something. So these guys launched through AppSumo. I'm pretty sure this is called New Oaks AI, just from Googling, because they integrate with Calendly and they launched on AppSumo, and they, it just kind of tracks. So what they were doing is they were selling, one-time purchases. And it seems like in September 2023, they stopped doing that because they realized it was not creating a valuable business. So I bet they decided to sell this business in September 2023, and then they flipped to subscription. And now they have MRR of $160,000.
Right. Since September, which isn't very long. Yeah.
Yeah, which isn't very long. So what's interesting here is I'm guessing, unless they like ungrandfather people, which would be a pretty nasty thing to do, is to say you pay for lifetime and now you're going to start paying monthly. It seems like all $160,000 of MRR would be acquired since September, right? This would be all new customers, which I think sounds good, right? I mean, that's a decent amount of new MRR that you've acquired semi quickly. The problem is they haven't even lapped 1 year of this business model, right? I mean, they're 9 months in. It's June 2024, and they started this in September 23. And, so their oldest cohort is 9 months. And the meat of their cohorts are probably 3 to 6 months old. You really don't know what lifetime value is at all.
No.
On this business.
And the whole idea of churn, what is customer churn? Churn takes time. We can't, so if it's been really recent and they say our churn is really low, well, that doesn't really have any meaning to you because you need time to see what the churn is going to be. Yeah. So I think that's a big challenge. What was the total revenue?
The revenue is $2 million.
$2 million. So that's also probably all pretty recent, right?
That's the 160K MRR. So my quick math, they say revenue is 1.9 million. 160,000, which is they say is their MRR times 12 is 1.92. So which I was initially worried that they were going to say some of the revenue was from the one-time purchases and some was MRR, but I think they may have normalized here and kind of said
just MRR.
It's run rate 2 million in sales.
So what I was thinking about there is it cost them $1.2 million-ish to get those clients. So there is a customer acquisition cost here that is also not seasoned. It's also pretty recent, because the margin is, 800,000 or a little bit less than that on 2 million of revenue. So, what is it going to cost you to keep that going? What did they do to get those customers signed up since September of 23? I think that's something so recent. It's just very, very hard to predict what it's going to do going forward.
Yeah. And here's the other thing that scares the crap out of me. I mean, they say they're selling it because they have lack of time. They have another idea. The reason they have another idea is that I think this business is about to get roadkilled because Calendly is working on their own AI. So they are pretty dependent on Calendly here, right? Like this is sitting on top of Calendly. I'm sure they could kind of build around Calendly and start to interface with your Google Calendar or whatever directly. So I don't think this is inherently tied to Calendly. But what's happening is Calendly is going to launch this as a feature and just build it into everybody's Calendly accounts.
Why wouldn't they? Right.
Yeah. Why wouldn't they? Right. Because it'll drive more Calendly accounts. It'll drive more. They could sell as an upsell feature or drive more retention for Calendly. And all of Calendly's competitors probably build that too. I think what these guys have figured out is that they have a feature, not a product here. And they're probably on borrowed time. Just because the new LLMs are pretty easy to integrate, only getting easier. I would worry a lot about getting kind of crushed from behind, from the Calendlys and the SavvyCals of the world, just building these chatbots. The other thing I worry about being crushed by is like the intercoms, like all the other chat widgets that you can put on a website could build a Calendly integration also with an LLM. And they've already got distribution because they're already on all these websites. So this reads to me as super, super competitive.
Hey, Michael here. Today, I want to talk to you about my company, Near, that we started, 4 years ago now. And my story with Near is I discovered that hiring could happen pretty much anywhere, not just in the US. And I discovered there's a gold mine just south of us here in the US, in the case of Latin America. I hired numerous folks out of there, including a gentleman who eventually became my co-founder at Near, a man named Franco, and he and I are business partners in the company. And what I found was, as I started to hire in Latin America, started to hire globally, like it's totally different than hiring in the US, and it's like super hard. And I needed a partner. I needed a company that could help me as I start to try to navigate things like how do I do background checks, or how do I do reference calls, or like how do I deal with overseas holidays? Like all that stuff was really hard to do. So we started a staffing company. It's called Near. It's run by my two partners. They're in there every day, making sure the customers are happy, and I'm a happy customer too. And one of the things I'll share with you is that that when I first started, doing global searches to build companies, I thought it was just like VAs and call center employees. But I've just been blown away by the caliber of talent that you can find anywhere, not just in the US. And, I think that's one of the magical things about now we can all run global searches for hiring roles, and Near is a partner in all of that. So if you're interested and want to talk to us, we'd love to help you. If not, that's fine too. But go to hirewithnear.com and definitely give them a holler. Tell them I sent you. And if you put in hirewithnear.com/AA pod, you'll get a 5% discount on your first hire. So you win, we win. Hopefully that helps. All right, go to hirewithnear.com/AA pod and get 5% off for your first hire. All right, thanks. Now back to the episode.
No moat, basically. There's probably no moat. With so much technology, I think that's the case right now. It's really hard to find something that has a moat. This one doesn't seem to have one. And that does, how can you pay 6.4 years worth of profit for something where it's really hard to see what it would look like 24 months from now?
Yep. And so, like I said, I'm pretty sure this is newoaks.ai. Mm-hmm. It looks cool. Like it's a nice widget. You can book a demo meeting right here in the chatbot. They have, of course, it's between free and $99 a month. It's white labelable if you're an agency. So this kind of feels like it. You can use different LLMs. It looks like cool software, and I don't see anything, wrong with it. I just worry that this is getting attacked from all sides. Mm-hmm. You're going to get eaten by the customer service platforms, like Gorgeous, like Intercom, like all these ones that have widgets on the site already for customer service chat. They're going to launch this as a feature, and they're going to launch integration with the calendar apps. And then the calendar apps are going to come at you also and launch chat.
Yeah. And why didn't they sell to Calendly? It's kind of, Calendly didn't buy it. Right. Exactly. Cheaper to build. And I think that's what it is with these software products. It's a great, revenue source for a short period of time for a founder without leverage if they can build it at a certain cost. But to come along and buy it at a multiple of earnings is really a tough sell.
Well, I think that's the challenge. And it's unfortunate Michael's not here because I'm sure he'd have thoughts. But I think that's the challenge in a lot of technology is that it's very hard to establish moats because building software is incrementally getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And distribution really is the key advantage in software, right? How many millions of installed users do you have? That's why Google and Facebook and Apple, they just have app stores. They wait to see what developers build that gets popular, and then they just build it into the OS in the next release. And so those moats are very, very hard to assail. And everybody that doesn't have one of those moats is just kind of slugging it out in a total free-for-all until one of the big tech guys with a moat decides to subsume their business. So I think the places you want to be in tech are more complicated. So like stuff that has to be really custom for like a niche $e stuff with a longer sales cycle, stuff that it's just not worth it for Google to do. Or even Calendly, a $3 billion company. They have distribution, like they can build this. So I worry a lot here that these guys, it's gonna 6 years to get your money back at 6x EBITDA makes me nervous. Yeah. So like what you're saying is something with mass appeal is really hard to have a moat around, but something that's really niche-y, like maybe serving a very specific vertical or, very specific process, that might be appealing to buy, for a small buyer to buy a software in that sort of world. That's not that Google wouldn't be interested in, or the big companies wouldn't be interested in, which it makes a lot of sense to me. And even then, I think I would be worried about as a buyer, how do you keep the software developing along as quickly as things are changing? I've looked at some deals before where we've had a technology diligence expert come in. In fact, we wouldn't, the last bank I was at, we wouldn't lend on software without one of these reports because you have to bring someone in to really analyze the software itself, the roadmap for the software. But a lot of times what would come back is, what's in your cash flow model, you haven't built enough in yet for development costs, for further development costs. Like your basically R&D is, for something like this is the same as maintenance CapEx
in a business that has a lot of equipment and machinery. So it's kind of like another cost. So that you look at that 768,000, whatever it is, of profit, you're going to have to keep developing this if it's going to stay alive. So you're probably going to have an added cost every year to keep it going.
Well, and this is AI, so your developers are not going to be cheap.
Right. And in demand. They're going to be in demand. So how are you going to find them? Yeah.
Yeah. I think the thing that's a little bit tough is I don't have a good word for this, but this is an example to me of software that is basically cobble a bunch of APIs together and wrap some UI on top. Mm-hmm. So what they've basically done is used Calendly's API, and they've used ChatGPT's API, right? Chat API. And they've just basically wrapped it in a little bit of JavaScript so you can embed it on your site, right? Mm-hmm. So ChatGPT has a conversation with you, and then it figures out when to fire the call to the Calendly API. You get an appointment. That type of stuff is so easy to replicate, right? Because I mean, like you can build it, and people do. They build these types of products at hackathons in a weekend, right? So then distribution becomes the entire thing. And how you get it out, and how do you keep from, you're always getting all these little ankle biters who, instead of you're trying to charge $39 a month, they'll charge $9 a month, right? But they're also probably not good at advertising and distribution and all that stuff. So you've got to, all these consumer kind of self-serve SaaS, where you can sign up, they always end up going up market and trying to do B2B and bigger deals, because those are harder place for the ankle biters to chase them. Building customized solutions, building custom models for Verizon, if Verizon wants to do this at scale, or Bank of America wants to book appointments with mortgage bankers at scale. Like that's where this thing has to go, I think, in order for it to be defensible, to get good B2B partnerships. Otherwise, all the big platforms. I mean, Google has their own LLM. And if you watch Google I/O, you've seen it doing phone calls to small businesses, scheduling appointments, like with AI on both ends. Wow. So, I mean, it's everybody's coming for this. Like, I think it's kind of like one of those obvious frictions, like scheduling appointments using AI. Everybody's coming for it. I think it's going to be really hard to fend off the competition here.
Yeah. And to your point, B2B software sales is a very long sales cycle, very long. I mean, big companies don't change software easy. It takes a long, long time, and you have to get embedded into their entire process to even get a sale. I've actually looked at companies that sold software like that, and some of them had a 3-year sales cycle. That's the pipeline, 3 years. Yeah.
But that's the moat, right? If you can sell in that way.
Yes, right, exactly.
If you've already done that. So is this business transactable? I mean, I definitely think it's transactable, right? Someone will buy this.
Yeah. I mean, I think it looks like good software, and they're maybe the right kind of buyer that has another way, can integrate it into something else they're working on might buy it. I don't know that they would pay more than 6 times earnings for it. And I think the seller has to probably have some skin in the game. Seller probably doesn't get to cash out very much at this point.
Yeah. I think you need, 1 to 2x profit, and above that, probably some earnout. To do it with that. So here's the problem. Like if this were, the deal size here was $400,000, on $100,000 of MRR, like somebody might do it with cash, et cetera. But this is a $5 million purchase. Yeah. You're an individual, you're probably going to use a loan. And that's a 10-year SBA loan, and that's just terrifying.
Right. And a 10-year SBA loan is only going to cash flow at about 3.75 times earnings. So if you're going to pay 6, you have to come up with the rest in equity. And then you look at your return on equity and you go, no. So that's not easy.
So I feel like that, what you just mentioned right there, Heather, I feel like that's like an index because there's a math formula. That index should be reported on somebody's website over time, right? There's a math formula based on interest rates that you can figure out what's the highest multiple you can pay with 10% equity and today's interest rates. What is the highest multiple you can pay in cash flow? Yeah. What are your assumptions behind saying the number is 3.75 today?
Well, so I am in a DSCR, or a debt service coverage ratio model, all day on all kinds of deals. And so basically doing so many of them, you just go, okay, this is, you can see the math. We can play around with the purchase price and the equity, and that's what it comes out to. So in the low interest rate environment, we were at more of like a 4, even 4.25. You could afford 4.25 turns of EBITDA or adjusted EBITDA in SBA debt with that structure. But with higher rates, we're down to about 3.75. And it basically is it's just kind of the inverse of the debt coverage ratio that the banks want to see. They want to see at least a 1.3 to a 1.5. And if you play around with the DSCR model, you're going to see that your maximum leverage is going to end up at around 3.75 most of the time, depending on seller note terms. But it's good to have that rule of thumb in your head when you're looking at deals, because you may see something that you want to pay 6x for, but you got to then think that through. I'm not going to be able to pay for more than 3.75 in debt. So, does the rest of it make sense?
So to be clear, do you get 3.75 turns of debt, or you can only get about 3 turns of debt and the rest has got to be equity?
3.75 turns of SBA debt.
Of SBA
That's
debt.
about what you
Okay.
can get.
So if you're going to pay 4x, you're going to pay 0.25 in equity and 3.75 in debt. You're going to pay 4.75. You're going to pay 1x SD in equity and the rest in debt, and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
I think there's a really interesting and salient example of why interest rates affect multiples and valuations, because acquirers, by and large, are using debt. Most businesses are acquired with debt, all up and down, from small business transactions all the way up to large LBOs, right? All acquisitions are financed with debt, and debt has interest rates and debt service coverage ratios. So as interest rates go up, you can tolerate less leverage on a deal, right? As interest rates go down, you can tolerate more leverage on a deal and still make your debt payments, your interest coverage, your interest payments. And by and large, buyers as a group don't really change how much equity they want to put in as far as kind of a multiple, right? So when more debt is available, it inflates multiples because you've got kind of fixed amount of equity, and then we can take more debt, and so it inflates multiples. When interest rates are higher, less debt is available, so multiples have to come down.
But what's interesting about what really has changed in the SBA size market is the multiples were already pretty low. Usually you're talking 3 to 4 is what your multiple is on, a non-SaaS kind of small deal. And they're already so low that you won't have very many sellers that want to go much lower than that. So what has happened with the higher interest rate environment is most sellers are negotiating with the seller note. So they'll give a bigger note, they'll give better terms. If the deal has some challenges to it or hair on it, as we say, that's where they generally have been negotiating. And that works too if the terms of the seller note are really favorable to the buyer. But it has been interesting. It definitely affects things, especially when rates went up as fast as they did. That was kind of a shock to the system.
Okay, so I think this probably will trade. I mean, it's cool software. If you're a software entrepreneur and you feel like you could add features and you kind of understand how to try to build a little moat around this thing, I don't hate it. I just don't. I think it's going to be tough at 6.5 times EBITDA, especially if you use a loan. Does this trade at all with a loan, Heather? I mean, or is anybody?
I don't think so. I think most lenders will have the same kind of concerns about the future of this business, and the recent pricing change makes it really tough to finance.
Okay. Now, so I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question, because I don't mean to say that lenders don't always do their diligence, but it has been my experience that I'm speaking with one of the smarter lenders out there right now than you.
Thank you.
And I have witnessed a lot of deals get done where, and I'm simplifying here, they basically just shop around until they find a bank that's not smart enough. Right?
Yes. Okay. So
like, could this deal still get done? Because like what we've articulated on this podcast, the threats to this business require you to understand the idea of commoditize your complement and the product roadmaps of all the big tech giants. Like, this is semi-advanced, tech software industry strategy to get that this thing's probably going to be under pressure.
Yeah.
Is every bank really going to get that? Or are there going to be some fraction of banks out there that go, hey, we like SaaS. Hey, it's recurring. Hey, cool product. We really like it. We could see using it to book appointments in our business. I kind of get it. Let's do it.
This is such an important question, and I have strong feelings, so I'm going to try to tone them down a little bit. But yeah, I think unfortunately you have a lot of, we call it in banking, the greater fool theory. There's always a greater fool out there. When banks say no to a deal and they find out another bank did it and they're like shaking their head, why would you do that? banks aren't always right about when they say no too. I mean, they're wrong, in both cases sometimes. But yeah, I think it's really important not to take a bank giving you a loan as a indication that this is a good deal, because there are plenty of banks who will not understand the industry or will not understand sort of the subtleties and skip over that and just make the loan. And that does not mean you should do it. So you do always do your own diligence, surround yourself with a really good deal team, because the lenders are just people too, and they don't have the depth of experience in a lot of these industries that would kind of be required to make a better decision on some of these.
Yeah, like a SaaS lender would probably have good context for this.
Right.
You go to a bank that just got into SBA loans and they're just trying to originate volume, and they'll probably make this loan.
Right. Exactly. And and SBA is a very competitive field. It's a good thing in a lot of ways that we have so many SBA banks competing, but it's a bad thing in other ways, because that competition sometimes leads to bad decisions.
Okay. So what you're saying is, if you want to buy a questionable business, shop around until you find a bank that'll do it.
But maybe you don't want to do that because you are signing a personal guarantee. So that is the problem right there. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess if you feel really convicted on a business and you can't find a bank to finance it, that should tell you something.
Yeah. If everybody says no, there is with as many banks as we have to choose from and everybody says no, that should tell you something for sure.
On the flip side, though, if you're really convicted about business and you do find a bank to do it, that doesn't necessarily tell you it's a good business.
Right.
So
you should have other deal advisors. Yeah, have other deal advisors around you that, and this is my other pitch for value add investors. If this is something I disagree with a lot of banks on. A lot of banks prefer a deal that doesn't have any investor equity. They think it's a better deal if the personal guarantor brings in all the equity. I completely disagree. If the investors are value add. So if you're bringing in people on your cap table who have experience in the industry that you're buying in, and they're going to be engaged with you, they de-risk a deal. Let's face it, they help you. They will look at a deal. If the investors who have experience might say no a bunch of times, that's also an indication to you that this might not be a good deal if they won't even put money in. So I think surrounding yourself with good potential value add investors is also a way to kind of learn whether the deal you're looking at is good or not.
Agree. The more smart money you can get around the table, the better off you're going to be.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's wrap this one up. Thanks for listening to this episode of Acquisitions Anonymous. If you liked this one on SaaS, we have a whole bunch more on our website, which is acquanon.com. We have just spent a bunch of time to catalog almost 350 back episodes by industry. So this one will be on there and it'll be tagged SaaS. So if you want to learn about other SaaS deals, you can go on our website and just click SaaS and listen to 80 episodes of Acquisitions Anonymous just about SaaS. So that's acquanon.com. We also have our newsletter on there. So give us your email address. We're going to email you when new episodes come out. We also do a couple of deal write-ups occasionally. We would love to be in touch with you that way, or find us on Twitter at ACQUanon, or you can find me and Heather and Michael and Mills all on Twitter/X as well. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you next time.